Yes, my name is Darren Klinck. I'm the president and CEO of Bluestone. As Eric was mentioning previously, I spent 10 years with Oceana Gold and joined Bluestone, which is a brand new company. In fact, many of you might not have heard of Bluestone before because I've been on board for about 3.5 months, and the company is really only about 5 months old. The basis of Cerro Blanco, the project, and in fact the company, was done through an acquisition from Goldcorp. And this is a high-grade development project in Guatemala, which reasonably, if I'm standing here next year, 12 months from now, I'm hopefully be talking about the fact that we'll be making a construction decision on one of the highest grade undeveloped gold projects globally today. The project itself, these are just some of the highlights in Cerro Blanco, which is in the southeastern part of Guatemala. It has 1.2 million ounces of gold at 10 grams per ton. It's permitted, and in fact I'll be going back down to Guatemala the week after next, and expect to see some underground mining activities ongoing as part of our permit. And I'll talk a little bit about the infrastructure that we picked up here as part of this project, because Goldcorp, as you see a little bit further down, spent, and also Glamis, the predecessor company, which is really that Central American and Mexican business, came out of Glamis Gold when Goldcorp acquired them some years ago. But more than $230 million has been invested in this project, both in the gold project and a geothermal project, which is very interesting as well. In addition to being permitted for mining, there's a 50 megawatt license for the geothermal project as well. As we move forward, you can see a bit more here on the share structure. So this project, despite having $230 million invested in it, was picked up for $18 million US. Our executive chairman, John Robbins, founder of Kaminak, which was acquired by Goldcorp last year, is here in the room with me today. And it's the type of opportunity that we have seen over the years with large companies changing directions, changing strategy, despite the fact that a lot of dollars are invested in these projects for whatever reason, changes in jurisdictional focus, size of project, etc. And sometimes being in the right place at the right time can provide a lot of opportunity for stakeholders, both the communities, governments, to see these projects advanced, and of course shareholders. Another thing which was very attractive for me to come from Oceana Gold after 10 years there as a senior executive was coming into a project that was financed. We've got more than $42 million in the bank today. That's more than enough capital to see us right through this feasibility study, which we've launched a couple of months ago and will be completed by the end of next year. And in fact, when you look at that cash balance versus where the share price is today and the valuation of the company, again, largely because this is a brand new story, it's the first time in Geneva for us, there's 70 cents of value sitting in cash today. The other thing that was very attractive is if you look down the shareholder list, this is this is a shareholder list that any company, large or small, would love to have, and in fact, that's outdated as of yesterday because the Lundin family, catching up with Lucas yesterday, he's added another 5% to his position buying in the market yesterday. So that Lundin family trust is about 36% today. And so when you add up that along with CD Capital, a private equity group out of London, and management's position, and of course the retained 5% that Goldcorp took on in terms of shares in Bluestone, about 65% of the stock sits within four different groups. So a very strong backing, cash in the bank, and one of the highest grade gold projects globally today. We're building this airplane as we're just hurtling down the runway. It's as I said, brand new company. We're putting the team together right now as we speak. I joined 3.5 months ago. Our CFO joined from Capstone Mining. David Gunning, more than 30 years of mining high-grade gold projects. As we go through the board, William Lamb, CEO of Lucara, and Paul McRae, current Senior Vice President for Projects, overseeing a lot of the construction and development work for Lundin Mining. Those are the two appointments from the Lundin family. Leo Hathaway, Chief Geologist for Ross Beaty's group. Lumina Resources has worked all through Latin America, formerly with Anglo American. So a lot of good experience here, and really, we're going to need it because we've got a great project here that in the next 12 to 15 months we could be back talking to you about detailed design and engineering and building a gold mine. So the project itself is located in southeastern Guatemala. As Eric mentioned, the last 10 years I've been in and out of the Philippines. I've actually spent a fair bit of time in and out of El Salvador as well, and my wife is Mexican. And so developing countries, emerging markets, there's a lot of exciting opportunities in these places. And one of the things that really struck me when I first visited the project in Guatemala about 6 or 7 months ago was really when you fly into Guatemala City. I'm not sure how many people have been there before, but it's a very modern city. You see new cars, the streets are clean, the Intercontinental Hotel, and 3 hours down the Pan American Highway, you're at the project. It's not what you envision. It's not what you necessarily see on the internet. And the other thing here as well, for where we're located, is this is largely a Latino area. It's effectively land holdings that have been in families for generations. I'm originally from Alberta in Canada, so big hats, cowboy boots, and big buckles. That's what you see here too, and so it's quite a neat little place. It's very strong support. We acquired really through Goldcorp a very strong social license for the last 10 years. Just in care and maintenance, they've been investing about $8 million a year to keep that project in care and maintenance. So there's been a lot of investment that's gone into the local community and has given us a very good base. And my experience in developing countries is that when you find quality projects and the rocks are there to actually underpin a mine, you can engineer most things in life today. You can't engineer a social license. And so that social license is a key focus for us to continue to build on it. And we've got some of the best experts in Latin America that have been working with us on this, and we're building that out here as we speak over the next 12 months. From a political perspective, Guatemala, again, I was spending the last 3 years in and out of El Salvador, quite a difference with a neighboring country. It's a right-of-center government. It's one of the faster-growing economies in Central America, at 3 to 4% per year. Jimmy Morales has been in now for about 2.5 years. These places, you definitely have noise. We have noise in politics in Canada as well. But meeting with the mining minister the first day of my time with Bluestone, the 1st of August, he made it very clear that, like all the rest of the ministers in that government, they are very focused on the economy, on driving investment. The U.S. has a lot of influence here as well. There's a lot of U.S. dollars that come in, and they're very much pro-business. So he kind of underpinned that, and we've seen nothing more than support with regards to developing and advancing this project, particularly because it had been in care and maintenance for a number of years. It didn't fit the Goldcorp model more recently with the change in management, although 5 years ago, 6 years ago, this was really pegged to be added to the Marlin mine, which Goldcorp's operated for more than a decade here, and bring the production out of Guatemala into about a 400,000 ounce per annum production profile when you take the 150 from Cerro Blanco and add it to the Marlin mine. But Marlin's now closed, and this size of project wouldn't really fit for Goldcorp. The PEA that was completed, really based on, as I said, $170 million worth of work that went into the gold project over the last decade plus, demonstrated a project that will provide a great platform for building out a business, 100 to 150,000 ounces of production at an all-in sustaining cost of less than $500 an ounce. You can achieve this through grade. These low sulfidation epithermal systems, we love them at Oceana. We bought one from Newmont in New Zealand, and more recently the company has been focusing in the Desierto Massive in Argentina, a belt of these sorts of projects. So they're highly profitable when you find them. They don't tend to be large company size, but they print cash. And when you look at the metrics around this, the first year of production alone on this project would generate more cash flow, free cash flow, than the market value of the company today. So these are companies that or projects you can build companies around, and really the ball's in our court to advance this over the next 18 months. You can see the production profile: 1.2 million ounces, high grade. It's 1,000 to 1,250 tons per day production, small footprint, easy metallurgy, crush, grind, leach. These are dream deposits when you can find them. You can see there where this project will fit into the global cost structure across the gold space. So we were fortunate to acquire quite a bit of infrastructure. Those top two photos there you see in the underground are those are our guys. That's our equipment. As part of the acquisition, we acquired just over $2.4 million worth of equipment from the Marlin mine, which, as I said, has moved into closure. 2 portals, 2 declines, vent raises, infrastructure at surface, including water treatment plants, mechanic shops. And then with the equipment we purchased, we picked up 12 megawatts of backup power generation facilities, cat packs that have hardly been used, probably 6 or 7 cents on the dollar, scoop trams, jumbos, bolters, lube trucks. I don't want to say fire sale, but again, sometimes you got to be zigging when others are zagging. The deposit itself, you can see here, anything that's red is north of 12 grams up to 1,000. We've spent really the last 3.5 months since we've got a hold of this thing really focusing on the structural aspect of the deposit, and we're understanding more about it every month. The drills started turning a week before last, and this is part of the feasibility study that we're undertaking right now. So that'll be an important part for us to firm up our, really, and confirm the deposit, the continuity, and tighten up on things. In addition to that, as I had mentioned as well with the underground mining equipment, we'll start to do some extraction out of the underground next week, likely. And that's part of the permit requirements, because this is a mining permit. So every year we need to demonstrate that we've quote-unquote advanced, and we can do that with our own equipment. From an exploration perspective, we learned here about 2 months ago that there hadn't been a geologist on this property for almost 5 years. Again, a project in care and maintenance. I think every year, the local team would send the request in for the care and maintenance budget, and the carrier pigeon would send the $8 million in a bag down, and they'd keep the social license going and keep the project going, but no real investment in exploration. So this has got a large hydrothermal footprint. You can see the deposit itself in red is 400 by 800. It's again a very small footprint. But there's significant potential, and as we've gone back and re-logged core and got a better feel for the lithology and that productive interval on the low sulfidation system, we're identifying areas that need to be targeted. So focus right now is in and around that red area where the deposit is. That's part of obviously the drilling as we tighten up for the feasibility. But we're already identifying areas over here, and then also up in the northwest where Goldcorp, you can see a few tracers there. They did test that with, I think, 6 or 8 holes. But when we've gone back and re-logged, our inclination, we believe, is correct, that they weren't drilling deep enough. They weren't into the upper part of the productive zone. So the great thing about these sort of systems is that when you find ounces, you're finding 10-gram ounces, and these things will pay the bills. So I think you can expect to see a fair bit of news flow as we head into the first quarter on that. Regionally, our focus right now is just on the exploitation license. This is actually this should be exploitation, the gold area. But there's a whole trend of exploration applications that Goldcorp had in. They didn't really push to get those approved, and nor are we right now. We've got more than enough to focus on advancing this project over the next 12 to 18 months. But we're well financed, and we have the ability to test some of these targets. Real quickly here on the geothermal aspect of this project, effectively a throw-in, but $60 million US has been invested in this. This is an overprint, so effectively the land package that we own. Actually, that's another thing I should mention. We're not required to acquire any more surface rights. It was one of the things that I was quite surprised when I arrived. I was wondering where the people were, and in fact, there's no additional surface rights that need to be acquired, and part of that is because this geothermal project also controls surface rights. $60 million has been invested by Goldcorp. They did this back when oil was north of $100 a barrel. 40% of the power in Guatemala comes from carbon, so bunker fuel and coal. And on the back of that, they were looking at ways they potentially could bring their power costs down, utilizing geothermal to enhance the margins. Lucky for us, and in fact we got somebody involved about 3 months ago to help us kind of evaluate what we had. We're not geothermal experts, and on Tuesday when I'm back in Vancouver, we'll have a geothermal engineering group out of California make a presentation to us for really next steps, which is to do some flow test work, which would be the equivalent of putting together all your assays in a mineral project. Flow test to really determine of the production wells that have been done by Goldcorp, part of that $60 million, what's already been identified, what's there that potentially could generate power. And based on the data, we think it's probably somewhere between 2 and 10 megawatts of power. Today in Toronto, if you looked up a company called Polaris, they have a 50 megawatt power station in Nicaragua, which they brought on. This project is also permitted for 50 megawatts and has the potential to reach that in the future. And they get about $8 million a megawatt of EV for that company. It's about a $400 million company. So when you look at this geothermal, throw in nobody really knew anything about. We started to get our head around, and even if you pick the midpoint of that 2 and 10 megawatts just staring at us, which we should be able to get our head around in the first quarter, you potentially have $30 or $40 million worth of value, which exceeds the current EV of the company. So hence, why we're quite excited about this aspect of things as well. I've talked a little bit about the sustainability and the social license. I'm passionate about it. I've seen how it can really work in tough jurisdictions, and how proud one can be when you come into local communities and you deal with local governments, and you're really taking resource capital, which is stuff in the ground, and turning into human capital. And so it's a key focus for us, and I think the success of this project will be measured on the positive benefits and the impact and the capacity that can be built on the back of a high-grade resource in a great part of the world. So moving forward, as I said, the structural geology work has been instrumental for us. We brought an expert in out of the UK that's been working with us over the last 3.5, 4 months. And every month, our team gets more excited about really better understanding how to target and really how it's going to help us as we develop the feasibility study, the mining methods, as we tighten up on that and really demonstrate a robust project by the end of next year. The hydrology work is a key aspect of this project. We need to manage the water in this underground setting, and either treat it and discharge, or capture it and re-inject it. And so we'll find the right strategy there, and really utilize that on a basis to develop this mine over the next number of years. The 5,000 meter drill program, which is a start. I think we'll drill more than that, and in fact we'll probably do some from the underground as we get into the new year as well. We've got the mining equipment to be able to slash out drill stations, and that'll allow us to even expedite the drill out of the deposit, and potentially take some of those surface drills and start testing to grow the deposit. Talked about the geothermal well flow testing. We'll update the resource in the middle of the year, and this feasibility study, hopefully, if I'm standing here next year, this time we can talk about being pretty close with regards to the feasibility study being completed. So a presentation wouldn't be complete unless I put up a few slides that showed how we are undervalued, and a great project. So I've done a couple of those here. And when you look at the grade of this project, as I mentioned before, grade pays. It pays the bills. Pretium, a very successful development that's been brought on this year in British Columbia. You can see top of the pops. And then as you move down, Dalradian in Northern Ireland and Continental, I can't say offhand, but I think market caps there are 300-400 million plus or minus. Bluestone ranks pretty highly, and in fact the other high-grade project that's in that area in Ecuador, Lundin Gold, of course, which the Lundin family is a large shareholder in as well. You can see the consistency there, right? You go for quality. But on a valuation basis, we've got a lot of work to do. We've got to get out and start talking a little bit more about what we've got, and demonstrating to the market what this project is all about. I think you know, the first 2 analysts that have ever set foot on this project were there 10 days ago, you know, so this is just part and parcel. It's not something that Goldcorp talked a lot about, and in fact it wouldn't even show up in the appendix, I don't think, of the presentation. On a P to NAV basis, this is just kind of looking at it a different way, but you know, we screen really well here, that's a shot. That's what it looks like when you look down at the deposit. The deposit itself, again, small footprint. It's that hill. Here's some of the infrastructure: the water treatment plant, the cooling ponds, offices, etc. And in the foreground here, these shiny things, those are plots of land. Again, I'm running the family for years that has been, in many cases, leased out to Del Monte. They grow melons there and export those melons up into the United States. That's me. Thank you very much for your time.